For nearly half a century, Voyager 1 has been drifting deeper into the dark than any human-made object was ever meant to go. It survived Jupiter, Saturn, the fading edge of the sun's influence, and the brutal silence beyond the heliosphere. Most people assumed its final years would be simple: weak signals, aging hardware, and eventually silence. But that is not what happened. Instead, one of Voyager 1's last strange transmissions arrived in a form no one music expected: fragmented, chaotic, and seemingly corrupted, like the dying breath of a machine finally losing its grip on reality. At first, it looked like a malfunction. Music, then Majorana 1, the new quantum chip powerful enough to search for hidden order inside impossible noise, began tearing through the data. And what it found changed everything. Buried inside Voyager's music distorted transmission was structure, repetition, prime number logic, layered sequences that should not exist in the memory of a 1977 music spacecraft and definitely should not appear naturally in the emptiness of interstellar space. That is why the story feels music so disturbing. Because the deeper the signal was decoded, the less it looked like the breakdown of an old probe, and the more it looked like a response. Something inserted into Voyager's own transmission after music, its encounter with a highly advanced object far beyond the solar system. In other words, Voyager may first not have sent its final strange message alone. It may have carried something else back with it. The first sign that something was wrong came when Voyager's data stopped looking merely damaged and started looking unnatural. Engineers are used to noisy transmissions from deep space. Radiation can distort signals. Aging systems can corrupt music, bits, and failing hardware can produce ugly bursts of meaningless garbage. But this was different. Hidden inside the apparent chaos, music were repeating intervals, timing gaps, and nested structures that behaved less like breakdown, music, and more like design. It was as if the signal had been deliberately buried beneath static, the way a message might be hidden inside storm noise, so only the right listener could pull it back out. That is what made Majorana 1 so music important. Classical analysis tools kept running into the same wall because they treated the corruption, music, as damage. The quantum chip treated it as possibility. And once it started processing the relationships inside the transmission, music, at scale, the static gave way to order, prime sequences, geometric logic, and a repeating fingerprint that did not belong to any known Voyager protocol. That was the music moment the story stopped being about a malfunctioning spacecraft and became something much darker. Because Voyager, music did not appear to be dying. It appeared to be carrying a message it was never built to create. What made the decoded pattern so disturbing was not only that it existed, but that it behaved like a response. This was not the kind of mathematical music residue you would expect from random cosmic interference. The structure had layers. It evolved. It shifted music from simple, recognizable sequences into more complex arrangements, almost as if it were building music from basic universal logic into something more advanced. Like a stranger, music, first saying hello with numbers before moving into a language you do not yet know, the transmission seemed to begin in familiar territory and then step beyond it. And that is where the encounter with the advanced object becomes impossible music to ignore. Voyager 1 had already experienced a region of deep space where signals, magnetic behavior, and contact-like patterns, music, suggested it was not alone. Once Majorana 1 decoded the hidden structure in the later transmission, those events stopped looking separate. They started looking connected. The most unsettling possibility is also the one that ties everything, music, together. Voyager encountered something highly advanced, received a structured transmission from it, and unknowingly relayed that transmission back toward Earth inside what everyone first mistook for corrupted data. One of the reasons this decoding music shook researchers so deeply is that the transmission did not only contain patterns, it contained ideas. Buried in the decoded structure were modified constants, music, impossible relationships, and symbolic variations that suggested a logic beyond anything Voyager's music systems could generate on their own. This matters because Voyager 1 is not a modern intelligent machine. It has no architecture capable of inventing new scientific syntax, music, no ability to generate evolving symbolic frameworks, and certainly no power to spontaneously produce something that looks like an alternate model of physics. Music, that leaves only terrifying options. Either the signal was somehow embedded long before anyone realized it, which raises its own impossible questions, or something used Voyager as a relay after the spacecraft reached interstellar space. Music, and once you combine that with the reports of a highly advanced object, music, responding to Voyager's transmission rhythm, the implications become chilling. The message may not have been random data at all. It may have been a deliberate insertion, an encoded package, music, placed into the probe's outgoing signal by something far beyond human engineering, using our oldest interstellar explorer as a messenger without music, our permission. And then comes the part that makes this music story truly unsettling. The decoded structure did not just yield under brute force. It opened up specifically under quantum-style analysis. Majorana 1 did not simply read the message more quickly than classical systems. It uncovered relationships that seemed designed to emerge only when processed, music, through a deeper, non-classical framework. That means the signal may have been constructed with the expectation that ordinary computation would fail. In other words, the message may have been waiting, not for Voyager, not even for NASA, but for us to build the kind of machine capable of understanding it. Think about how disturbing that really is. Voyager launched in 1977, crossed into regions no human-made object had ever entered, appears to have interacted with something highly advanced, and then returned a hidden transmission that stayed unreadable until the arrival of a new quantum chip, music, decades later. That does not feel like an accident. It feels like timing, like a locked door left in the dark until humanity became music just advanced enough to open it. What makes the music-decoded transmission feel so unnatural is that it did not behave like a simple burst of information. It appeared to unfold in stages, music, almost like it was guiding the decoder through layers. First came the recognizable mathematical order, then more complex relationships, music, then deeper symbolic arrangements that felt less like raw data and more like an intentional progression. That is a very important distinction because noise does not teach you how to read. Music itself, static, does not slowly become more coherent. But this transmission, music, seemed to do exactly that. And that is why the results felt so disturbing. The message was not music just hidden. It may have been structured to reveal itself step by step, like an intelligence lowering music, the difficulty, as if to make sure the receiver could follow along. Imagine finding a locked box, then discovering the key is hidden inside the pattern engraved on the lock itself. That is the kind of logic this signal, music, seemed to carry. Voyager may first not have simply intercepted a transmission in deep space. It may have carried back a communication, music, that was designed to survive misunderstanding until the right mind or the right machine finally began opening it. Once the decoded message, music, is connected to Voyager 1's earlier encounter, the whole event takes on a darker shape. The spacecraft did not appear to make random contact with meaningless interference. Music, it appears to have crossed paths with something highly advanced. Music, something capable of responding not just to presence but to transmission. That changes Voyager's role completely. Instead of being just an observer, the probe may have become part of the interaction itself. That is where the idea becomes truly chilling. The object may not have needed music to send a brand new signal from scratch. It may have used Voyager's own outgoing transmission like a mirror, like a carrier wave, bending our signal into something else and sending it back altered. In that sense, Voyager 1 would not merely be the discoverer of the message. It would be the vessel through which the message was shaped, like shouting into a canyon and hearing your own voice return with words you never said. Earth may have received music, a transmission that began as ours but did not end as ours. One of the most unsettling implications of all this is music, that the transmission may not have been purely informational. It may have been evaluative. The way the structure gradually revealed itself under advanced quantum analysis suggests the possibility that the message was not meant to be readable by just any civilization, music, at any time. It may have required a very specific level of development. The point where a species becomes capable of building machines that can detect order beyond classical limits. That would, music, mean the message was not merely waiting to be decoded. It may have been waiting to see whether we were ready. That idea changes the emotional music weight of the whole story, because now we're no longer asking only what the message says. We are asking why it was hidden music in this particular way, why it was tied to an interstellar probe, why it stayed unreadable until the arrival of quantum hardware, and why the transmission feels less like a random discovery and more like a threshold event, like a locked gate that music only opens for someone who has learned enough to approach it. The signal may have been designed to identify a civilization, music reaching a new stage. And if that is true, then Majorana 1 did not just music decode a message. It may have answer tests. For decades, Voyager 1 has symbolized one thing above all else: humanity's reach into the unknown. A machine built on Earth, carrying our curiosity farther than anything else we have ever made. But if Majorana 1 truly decoded a hidden transmission inside Voyager's final music strange signal, then the meaning of that journey changes forever. Voyager may first no longer be remembered only as the probe that music left the solar system. It may be remembered as the first object to bring something back from beyond it that was never music, ours to begin with. And that is why this story feels so historic. Not because the message, music, is simply mysterious, but because of what it implies. A highly advanced object, music, may have interacted with our oldest interstellar spacecraft, embedded or reshaped a transmission inside its outgoing data, and left that message dormant until human music technology finally caught up. If that reading is correct, then this is not just a strange event in deep space. It is the first true case in which humanity may have received a deliberate communication from beyond the familiar boundaries of our world, and only now realized it had been sitting inside Voyager's music data all along. For most of its mission, Voyager 1 represented endurance. A machine launched by humanity, music carrying our ambition into the deepest dark, surviving long after anyone expected music it to remain relevant. But this story changes that image completely. Because if Majorana 1 truly decoded a hidden structure inside Voyager's final strange transmission, then the spacecraft did not merely send back corrupted data from the music edge of interstellar space. It may have returned something far more disturbing. A message shaped by contact with a highly advanced object beyond the last familiar boundary of our solar system. That is what makes this so unsettling. Not one clue by itself, but all of them together. The encounter with something advanced, the transmission that looked broken, music, but behaved like design, the layered mathematical logic hidden under the noise, the way the message only began to reveal itself under quantum analysis, and the possibility that Voyager was music, never meant to understand what it carried, only to deliver it. Like an ancient courier transporting a sealed letter in a language he could not read, Voyager may first have done its job without ever knowing what had been placed inside its own signal. And maybe that is the most disturbing part of all. The message may not have been intended for the engineers of the 1970s, music, or even for the scientists who first received the strange transmission. It may have been intended music for a later version of us, for a civilization that had finally become capable of building the kind of machine, music, that could decode it. If that is true, then the real story is not that Voyager 1 encountered something impossible. It is that the encounter may have been waiting for humanity to catch music up. So now the question is no longer whether Voyager 1's final transmission was corrupted. The question is this: what exactly music did Majorana 1 unlock? And were we ever supposed to read it all? If you enjoyed this video, drop your theory in the comments below. Do you think Majorana 1 really decoded a hidden message inside Voyager 1's final transmission, or are we only seeing the first layer of something much bigger? And subscribe. Music, because if this signal was real, then what comes next could change everything we think we know about deep space, intelligence, music, and the limits of human understanding. I'd love to hear what you think about this, so drop a comment below. If you enjoyed our conversation today, please share this video and subscribe to help the channel grow. Every bit of support counts.